London, somewhere between 1599 and 1605. A humble stage is about to be transformed into the setting in which Shakespeare will tell the story of the greatest hour of England's most perfect king. The curtains pull back, and we meet the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Bishop of Ely. They are discussing some politics before complimenting the maturing of a wild Prince Hal into the sober King Henry. The king arrives and wants to discuss his legal right to the French throne. Despite the claim being flimsy at best, the clerics argue the case, satisfying the king that he has the right. A French envoy arrives, making light of Henry's claim, and giving a gift which the Dauphin believes suits Henry's maturity. Henry is not amused, and promises to turn the tennis balls into something of more substance. In the first of a few scenes, we meet some revellers in a pub, old drinking pals of Prince Hal. The king not being so wild now, these characters really don't have any relevance to the story. Meanwhile in Southampton, Westmoreland, Bedford, Exeter and the king discuss the conspirators Scrope, Cambridge and Grey. These conspirators now arrive, but they don't know that the king knows about their treachery. So that the conspirators condemn themselves, Shakespeare has Henry handle the case of someone caught on a minor offence. The king pardons him, but the conspirators argue that all offences must be charged and no mercy should be shown. The king counters that if he treats all crimes the same, how will he punish serious crimes? Speaking of which, the conspirators are now shown proof of their betrayal, to which they confess and then ask for mercy. You see how this goes. Despite the noble king not wanting them to die, he has no choice, and they have condemned themselves. Back to the revellers who are mourning the loss of one of their party, Sir John Falstaff. They resolve to go on campaign to France. In the French court, the king and the Constable of France are arguing with the Dauphin, urging him to take this English invasion seriously. What becomes apparent is that the French confidence means they are woefully unprepared. Exeter arrives in the French court to ask for their surrender. After thinking about it overnight, Exeter is told to offer a few dukedoms to Henry and the hand of the king's daughter. That is not enough. Meanwhile, a wild battle outside the town of Harfleur is going on. Henry, seeing his tired and demoralized troops, motivates them.
Once more unto the breach, dear friends! Once more!
While this inspires most, a few of the familiar revellers are not as willing to risk their lives, regardless of how noble this cause is. Seeing as no relief has come from the Dauphin, the governor of the town surrenders. Exeter is left in command and instructed to practice mercy. Elsewhere, Catherine, the daughter of the French king, decides to learn English. In the French court, everybody is unimpressed with everybody else, and the king instructs every noble to go to battle with the English, except for the Dauphin, who is to remain with him. The Dauphin isn't bothered and goes anyway. We'll encounter him in the French camp, going on about his horse. We then switch between the confident French camp and the troubled and tired English camp. The worried English king disguises himself and goes among his troops to take in the mood, a little touch of Henry in the night. For contrasting effect, the Dauphin is still going on about this horse of his. Immediate preparations for battle have begun. Gloucester, Bedford, Exeter, Salisbury and Westmoreland look on with a sombre expression. They're tired and severely outnumbered. Salisbury goes to check on the final battle preparations, and Henry overhears the conversation between his nobles. He bids them to wish not one man more, and that anyone who does not have the stomach for this fight will be given a free pass out. He promises fame and glory to everyone who fights with him, and who will be remembered forever on this, the Feast of Crispin. Salisbury returns to inform them that the French are ready, and the French herald himself arrives to ask for Henry's surrender before he will certainly be beaten. The French are given a determined no. Finally, York is given command of the battle, and final preparations begin. In the midst of the battle, we see the contrasting fortunes of those involved. The French are so hopeless that one is even captured by the revellers that we met earlier. The French leadership looks on hopelessly as they just can't make their numbers count, and Henry realizes that his English are doing well, though he is saddened to hear of York's brave death. Being told that French reinforcements have arrived, Henry orders the execution of French prisoners. Meanwhile, the French have struck a low blow and killed boys at the back of the English luggage convoy, angering Henry and his men. The French envoy, Mountjoy, arrives and informs the English of their victory. Henry's rage is calmed, and he christens the battle for the town nearby, Agincourt. The scene closes with a tally of the battle losses, comparatively minor losses for the English, while utter catastrophe for the French. The English resolve that they are satisfied, and will now go home to England. Now the play could have ended there, especially in Branagh's 1989 movie production, ending with Henry marching across the battlefield, while his men chant non nobis, and he arrives finally on the other side and stands triumphantly beside the French flag. We must bring to a close the pointless subplot of the revellers from the tavern. The last of them, Pistol, leaves the battlefield, still alive, and resolving to devote his life to being a bandit. The French court receive Henry, and all resolve to have a peaceful end. Henry is allowed a few moments to woo Princess Catherine, after which they are promised in marriage, and Henry is made heir to the throne of France. The curtain is drawn. The narrator comes back. He apologizes for trying to cover so wonderful a story on a humble stage, and also promises a sequel.